YouTube! What the crap's going on? I have what should be a fun battle here, which is good grudge match. We got Wood Elves versus Dwarves. But before we start, I wanted to take some time over my next few videos, Total War videos, because these ones get the most views and attention and everything, and make sure that I use this opportunity to appreciate some of the folks who are supporting me on Patreon in the largest extent. I had some feedback from you all in a stream where you were asking me about a reward system for Patreon that kind of gives you cool things for helping me out. And I am working on that. I apologize it takes so long. I'm very busy at work and with my family at home. But I have the suggestions and I've looked over it and I've kind of been thinking how to implement it. And I'm going to try and be working on that next week when I'm out on the road so that I can try and get something put together. But let me just go ahead and appreciate a few people here. First off, wanted to call attention to Dean Palmer. He is the overall #1 patron I've had since I've opened it. Fantastic. He's given me a ton of support. And I just want to call him out here and say thank you, Dean. And then a couple of the other folks here, and not a whole lot behind that. I've got Piet, Ponto, Pipidin. Sorry if I'm saying it wrong, man. I'm going to call you Piet. So thank you. Your support is massive and very much appreciated. I'm going to spend some time at the beginning of each video like this calling out a couple people who have just been very clutch and supporting me there, and let them know how much they appreciate it. So thank you, Dean. Thank you, Piet. Stay tuned, like I said, for more of these in upcoming videos. Want to make sure and call those people out and tell them thank you. And if you have donated to me in any extent, thank you as well. It's very much appreciated. And if I don't get to call your name out on here, I apologize. There's quite a lot of you, though I am going to try and get some recognition out there over time. And guess what? That's not it. There's more. If you're a viewer and you come here and you watch my videos, then that's a lot of support for me as well. That's a huge deal. Obviously, that's the way that YouTubers support themselves, is off of your views, and I can't tell you how much it means to me. And some people might be like, here, shut up and commentate the battle. All right, I will, I promise. But just want to try and pay it back to you all for all the support you give me, and make sure you know that it's appreciated. I really am humble about it and extremely appreciative, because I know that you have options. It's YouTube. There's a lot of people you could watch. So let's check out this battle, which is going to be Dawi versus Wood Elves. Gyrocopter with brimstone guns. So 4 copters with brimstone guns. Definitely could give some trouble to flying units. I like it. And then the dwarf player is deployed way in the heck out here over on this hill. Lots of guns. I say lots of guns. 2 guns. Sorry, not lots of guns. I don't know what I was thinking. There's plenty of artillery. Cannons. And then I see the grudge thrower back here. So lots of long range. Now that's kind of an interesting idea, because the Wood Elves can't counter the range, with artillery range at least. And look at this Wood Elf player, clearly intent on taking out the dwarves. But this is interesting. It's like a giant army of starfire shafts, which, again, the magic damage on the starfire shafts is gonna be pretty wasted on the dwarfs, especially if there's a runesmith or a rune lord. And there is a rune lord. Holy crap! If he's got the right magic resistance, 25%. Well, it doesn't look like he's added anything else to the rune lord, so no specific further magical impacts there. But it looks like we have 2 thanes, rune lord, quite a few miners with blasting charges. Looks like he's just gone for cheap infantry to pay for the gyros. So yeah, as much cheap infantry as he can field, basically. So the gyros could somewhat successfully, see how he's split up like this? He could definitely successfully skirmish with a certain number, or with the dragons, if he could stay outside the very long range of these Glade Guard with Starfire shafts, which, I mean, the Wood Elf player shouldn't let him get away with such a thing. I'm going to pop over here, get this Brimstone gun. See? Magic resistance. So the Starfire shafts do armor-piercing damage, but it's kind of a big deal. 25% resistance, basically. You can see he's trying to push the brimstone guns, and I guess he can see some of the dwarf army now over here, so we'll see whether or not the Wood Elf player decides to do anything about it. Let's go ahead and fast forward and kind of see how this plays out. Looks like the dwarf is going to take this hill position right here, which should give a good opportunity for his artillery. Now the Wood Elf player, yep, is just going to move into the woods. And why not, right? You're a Wood Elf. You get in the woods. So that's the difficulty of trying to make artillery work against Wood Elves, is that if there are woods, chances are they're going to go in those woods. And that's exactly what they've done. Look at those starfire shafts out here reaching out to touch the gyrocopters and the brimstone gun. Alright, let's see how this plays out. Which player is going to give in and attack? Like I said, it's mostly Glade Guard with starfire shafts, and then it's going to be Eternal Guard. I about half wonder why elf players don't try and go with like a good core of Wildwood Rangers. I mean, I know you got to protect them from artillery and skirmish fire. They have a little bit of armor, but not a lot. But if you could protect those guys from skirmish fire, they just shred dwarf units because they're so good versus armor. Very, very good versus armor. The gyrocopter with brimstone guns over here going to skirmish on the forest dragon a little. And then the cannons also working it over. So the flying units cannot take cover in the forest from the cannons. The cannons are not terribly accurate versus flying units, but they will hit them. Dwarf cannons, especially more so than Empire cannons, they're pretty accurate. Now, if you have a moving target that's like, you know, going perpendicular to your cannons a lot, probably not a lot of hits. But if you play it right, they can definitely do damage. Now, the Grudge Thrower is still having very good effect here, despite the elves being in the woods, which is pretty impressive. See a clean miss there from the cannon. So it looks like the dwarf player has forced the Wood Elf to play their hand here and come attack. 180 range with his archers, so bear that in mind. Only 160 range, or 145 range off the Thunderers, my bad. So a little bit shorter than Quarrelers or standard archers. It looks like the artillery is going to be taking the arrows of Kronos there from the Blade Lord. The flying monster is definitely going to be kept at a distance because of the gyrocopter's harassment. And if the monsters get too close to the dwarf army, then the Thunderers can support. Thunderers have shields and the magic resistance, so they can definitely die. Look at that, though. The Starfire Shafts, did they destroy that, or was it the... it could have been the arrows of Kronos that did that. If they destroyed the cannon, then that's kind of interesting. They're definitely taking a lot of damage, but the Grudge Thrower is dishing a lot of damage over here. And look, here comes the flying monster trying to get in here to get rid of these cannons. It's going to hit by blasting charges, and then there's the brimstone gun. So the forest dragon also getting hit by the thunder, so that's not going to work. Not going to work at all. Now, I would think that the miners would actually be a pretty good target for the Glade Guard with Starfire Shafts, because there's no shields. And I know the miners aren't like the key... Well, I say that. The miners aren't the key danger, but they're already going to do less damage versus the dwarves, and if you throw a shield in there, they're going to do even less damage. So I'm just trying to think how he could have the maximum impact with his units, and I'm thinking the unprotected miners with blasting charges might be the easiest target. But, I mean, it's clear why he wants to destroy the cannons. The cannons will do damage, as will the Grudge Thrower. Grudge Thrower's already got 24 kills. Look at this. Forest Dragon got absolutely shut down. But then look at that Arrows of Kronos. Very nice hit. And the Gyrocopters did a lot of damage. And the Gyrocopters are well within the range of these Glade Guard. But again, when you look at the magic resistance, the damage is just not as terrible as it is for units that don't have that magic resistance. Oh, unfortunately here, the Grudge Thrower. Oh, there's two of them. I didn't know there's two of them. One of them strayed too far forward and it's getting ripped apart. But look at the ammo usage here. Probably about 50% of the arrows on some of the units being used. Not all. But quite a lot of ammo expended here for not really a big impact. And I'm sure that the dwarf player wants to destroy the dwarf artillery, thinking that'll let him exercise his ranged advantage, but then if the dwarf sits in the woods, they still get a ton of cover from the arrows. There's just not a lot of melee power behind the dwarf army, or the Wood Elf army. So the one dragon did come back, and it's in pretty rough shape. The cannons are almost gone, and again, the elves can chase you, and they can fire while moving forward, which makes them pretty darn useful. These dragons are just getting hosed by the Thunderers. Not completely unexpected there. And then the brimstone guns are also going to cause significant damage. And their magic resistance is helping them out a great deal here. So the dragon's going to pop up, maybe try and chase the gyrocopters. Yeah, it's going to try and go into melee with... No, it's going to go after the cannon. It destroys one unit when it gets down into melee. But like I said, I don't know if this is a great trade. Like, kind of beating up an already defeated artillery unit with a very expensive forest dragon. I mean, the infantry of the dwarfs is none too stellar, and like I said, they're not shielded. So we'll just kind of have to see how this plays out. The miners are going to push forward over here. I would think miners would get both beaten by Eternal Guard and pretty well damaged by the archers. But there are 2 Thanes and a Rune Lord, and without the dragons, can the elves really kill that? And my thought is no. So if the elf player here is able to play the attrition game, I think they win. They've got so much ammo left on their gyrocopters as well. So this is definitely going to be a different type of battle here. One that goes over a little bit longer period of time with a lot more small engagements determining the overall outcome of the battle. Here's the miners with blasting charges fighting against the Eternal Guard. This game has got some beautiful unit models and art. I absolutely love the effort that went into this by Creative Assembly. Ha, that's 2 miners on 1 Eternal Guard, and they're not doing so hot. Looks like the miners are going to retreat, actually. So it looks like the dwarf just kind of falling back. It's almost like he's playing the game of attrition. And again, look at the ammo here. Almost empty, mostly empty. These guys over here, maybe a little bit closer to half. So the ammo count is dropping for the Wood Elves, and that just helps the dwarfs when it comes to the balance of power. As you expend ammo, the balance of power can change as well. So if you're expending a lot of ammo and not getting a lot done with it, the balance of power will start to shift against you. Here comes the blasting charges. Look at this, they're going to disrupt the charging Eternal Guard. It's a good way to slow them down here and cause a little damage. So these miners are going to come in, and then these 2 can move out with their blasting charges and get some more throws. Yeah, you can see the archers definitely getting some work done against the miners. Like I said, how do you deal with the Rune Lord? He's not going to die easily to missiles. He's got, you know, nice magic resistance. Looks like he's just pulling back the miners, and just more and more arrows being used. And again, when the arrows run out, then what? Throw the Glade Guard into melee? They're not bad at melee. They're not terrible. 20, 27. They don't have a lot of AP though. Miners have pretty sturdy armor, so they probably won't get a whole lot done versus miners in melee. I mean, their melee stats, like I said, not bad for an archer unit, but I like how the guns are hanging back, and like I said, their shields are going to give them some pretty sturdy protection. Thunderers and Quarrelers excel at skirmishing because of that shield. So here's the Eternal Guard charging, and I thought I saw the Glade Lord over here. Yeah, there's the Glade Lord. Let's get the insert camera on the Glade Lord here. There she is. Fighting there in the center, knocking a bunch of Dawi around. But I can also see the Dwarf Thanes back there, and look, here comes the Brimstone guns, maybe looking to drop some bombs. No bombs yet. Almost looks like they're running away. This game is beautiful. It really is. Let's take a look at the overall. So I mean, the Dwarf Infantry is not really stellar here. There's still guns. There's still artillery. And then the gyrocopters are in decent shape and still causing the elves to spend a considerable amount of ammo. The 2 dragons look like they're kind of chasing off this. They're being saved. So this actually could come down to a fairly close finish depending on what happens here. Like I said, though, I still have a hard time imagining how the Wood Elves are going to kill the Dwarf heroes. The Rune Lord, the Thane. They're going to be very tanky based on what the elves have here. Let's get some more close-ups on combat as the miners taking on the Eternal Guard in a low-tier infantry fight to the death. Blade Guard are pretty decent low-tier infantry. Or Eternal Guard, sorry. They're really not bad. They got a fair bit of armor piercing, and the ones with shields are somewhat missile resistant. I find them to be pretty good low-tier infantry. Just gonna take a look around here again. So if the Thane and the Rune Lord are able now, so the Glade Lord is gonna be much faster. than the dwarf units. She's got 48 speed, so the dwarf heroes can't catch her. But she's used up most of her ammo here too. Does she have the prey thing? Even against the dwarves, prey doesn't do a whole lot. Yeah, she does have it. She's going to try and get over here into the Thunderers. That's probably a good plan, because the Thunderers could destroy her pretty quick. So getting right up into their face in melee there is a good plan. Some of the archers have caught the grudge thrower in melee, and then the guns over here repositioning. If they get repositioned for a decent volley, they can probably kill this dragon. But they're right now just running. So if the dragon catches him, it'll be bad for the guns. If they, like I said, they just need probably one volley to do that. Dwarf heroes are going to be mopping up a considerable amount of infantry. Comes in arrows of Kurnos. Gets a hold of a gyrocopter right there, so pretty good. Looks like the brimstone guns are going to focus in on the Glade Lady. Yeah, here the guns were given a runaway order, and if they had shot, they would have killed the dragon, but they were not able to. Miners being somewhat successful over here. Dragons cleaning up the grudge thrower, so the dragons came back to have a little more use. The brimstone guns are definitely getting some work done versus the lady here, the Glade Lordess. She's gonna get some support from these Glade Guard with Starfire shafts coming into melee. They'll do yeah, I mean they're about the same as the Thunder in melee, but with less armor. So the Thunder technically would be better, but they're outnumbered and surrounded. I still think that the dwarf hero core of this is going to be the death of the elves. What can they do about this? Dwarf heroes are very difficult to kill with cheap infantry. I mean, outside of Grimgore Ironhide and maybe a couple others, like, they're hard to kill when you don't have the right units. A lot of armor, sturdy defense, plenty of damage, and typically pretty high leadership. So you can see these guys are getting some work done. And the elf lordess here is really getting her face shot off by the gyrocopters. I would think that she wants to get back into these woods as quickly as possible. Now look at these. These thunders are hidden. They get an attack order at the last second. Ooh, are they going to get shots? They do get a couple of shots, and then the gyrocopter's got a shot or two. The dragon didn't have an order on him, though. He's chasing the gyrocopter. So that's going to be the end of that dragon. There is one more out near the fringes. Just kind of take a look here as the dwarf heroes getting into more of the elven archers that no longer have ammo, and no matter how much they look like Legolas, the spirit of Orlando Bloom just can't save them. Unless maybe they jump on a shield and like go snowboarding down the mountain while slaying all the dwarves or something. It still only counts as one, Legolas. It only counts as one. Lame jokes for the win, folks. Lame jokes. Look at that. Good stuff. Pyrrhic victory. Dwarfs are going to take that one home. That's interesting because I wonder if the dwarf or the elf player did this on purpose, but their pick was almost like the opposite of what I would want to pick versus a dwarf army. But then again, the dwarf army was extremely unorthodox as well. So like if you would have wanted to take a melee rush, for instance, like with a bunch of Wildwood Rangers, how does that work out? You're going to get the crap shot out of you by gyrocopters if you don't have a whole lot of other protection. So if you're like, well, I don't need archers, and then the dwarf doubles down and brings gyrocopters, what are you going to do about that? You're going to get shot and bombed the whole time. You only have a little bit of defense. And then with all the artillery, I mean, a heavy infantry rush like that gets chewed up pretty good too. So it is an interesting build. I don't know if it's like a crazy strong build here from WoWaz, but it's interesting. And it seems like every time I play this guy, he's got a really interesting build. I'm always scared when I come up against him because I never know what he's going to pull out of his pocket here on the crazy builds. I like this one, though. Like I said, it definitely has some potential to hurt different kinds of Wood Elf builds. Now, I would have to wonder about a Durthu tree-heavy build here. Could this withstand that? I mean, he's got the Brimstone guns for armor piercing. He's got the Thunderers for armor piercing. Technically, the infantry are armor piercing, though I imagine they would get terrorized pretty quick, and then the cannons would do good versus large. So I guess technically he's got an answer. And then I believe the brimstone guns do flaming damage too, which does extra work against like forest spirit units that like the treekin. So that is an interesting army from Woof Wowaz. What do you all think? Do you like his army? Do you like what he did there? He is definitely always like a notoriously different player when it comes to the way he likes to play armies. So I appreciate him sending that in. Hopefully it got you thinking about some potential ways that, you know, I mean, a lot of people think dwarves are the hard counted elves, and I guess they may be, but if you go with a more traditional dwarf army, outside of that, I mean, it may be easier for the Wood Elf to predict you. And I thought that was interesting that he kind of made artillery work on a heavily forested and with lots of terrain on the map. So anyway, like I said, leave me your thoughts. HeirofCarthage signing out for now. I will see you soon.